The Arizona Cardinals officially have their final three for their vacant head coach opening. No Vance Joseph. We'll tell you who the front runner is. Coming up, it's PHNX. Hey, welcome in. Live from Studio K on a Saturday. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier, #1 in the world, Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. Emergency podcast edition. I'm Johnny Venerable, Sands, Bull Brock. He's skiing. He's having a nice getaway weekend with his family. He alluded to this on Friday. He said something's going to happen. And I'm going to be on a mountain, and that's exactly what happened. But we appreciate everybody jumping in. We got Noah on the ones and twos here. We're going to break it all down. Get your comments, get your likes, get your super chats. We appreciate everybody. Cardinals, we waited all week for some clarity. We gave you some. We thought we had some with Robert Saleh. We sit here January 24th on a Saturday. We believe to know the hierarchy of this franchise's next head coach. Good to see everybody in the chat. Nacho Libre, Bees, of course, Too Slim Shady, Jack. We got Sean here. What's up to all of our members? Hit that like. Got a little juice on a Saturday. Kyle. We got, let's see who else. We got Burnt. We got Aaron. Everybody in the chat. Great to see all the sickos here enjoying a nice little Saturday, a nice little emergency podcast for your #1 Arizona Cardinal podcast. Hit that download, and of course, subscribe to PHNX. Big thanks to Noah and Shane for getting the stream up and running, ready to go. And again, do us a favor, subscribe wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. All right, so let's turn the clocks back just 24 hours. There was a report that was alluded to that the Arizona Cardinals were really down to a couple different candidates, but it was hard to source where that was coming from. We knew Anthony Campanile, according to Jeremy Fowler, was somebody that impressed them, that he is still firmly in the running. Of course, Raheem Morris is somebody that they've talked to in person. And then we fast forward to today, and I put out a tweet based on some things that I was hearing that while these other candidates are in play, Mike LaFleur is their primary target. Mike LaFleur would be the most realistic front runner if you want to tab that, here on a football Saturday. And then came the report that Anthony Weaver was coming in on Sunday, just fresh off a meet with the Steelers and I think a couple other teams, the Bills. He's going to do an interview with the Cardinals on Sunday. It's a tough look for Anthony Weaver as we're going to get into it. The Cardinals are like leaking out you're visiting, and then you're not included in the final three finalists, which I thought was bizarre. We had not confirmed yet that the Cardinals had 2 in-person interviews with a minority candidate, which would, of course, comply with the Rooney Rule. So I had heard that this was going to be the second, that Anthony Weaver on Sunday would be the second. Well, why would the Cardinals do that? The Cardinals would do that so they could turn around and hire whomever they wanted, give themselves open reins. Now, had they hired Robert Saleh, he was in the mix earlier this week. They wouldn't have had to abide by that, of course, because Saleh's a minority candidate. If they brought in another minority candidate during the initial round of interviews to go along with Raheem Morris, I have no idea who that is. Like, the people are alluding to the Cardinals that they've already done the comply with the Rooney Rule before Sunday's interview with Anthony Weaver. Like, if you guys know who that is, tell me, because I have no idea. Thomas Brown couldn't do in person. Anthony Weaver, I think, did a remote the first time around. They brought Raheem Morris in. So I'm still going to go off of the notion that Sunday they will comply with the Rooney Rule fully ahead of next week. So if you're going off of that logic, there was a couple interesting nuggets that came out of this morning. First, let's start with Ian Rappaport after Adam Schefter, I couldn't remember who it was, Adam Schefter on Friday said that Mike LaFleur, Raheem Morris, and Anthony Campanile were in the mix, right? We had heard that LaFleur was firmly the front runner. And then you got Rap Sheet's article this morning suggesting that it was Mike LaFleur who they were waiting for. That obviously they could hire Campanile, they could hire Raheem Morris, they could have done that days ago. They are waiting to talk to Mike LaFleur, which is, goes hand in hand with what we had heard, that he is the front runner for the job, that he is the person that they want to speak with. So as we sit here now, 2 days removed from an opportunity to speak with him, and whether or not they can hire him is predicated on the Rams hopefully losing tomorrow in the NFC Championship game. I firmly believe that Mike LaFleur is the front runner for this job tenfold. Raheem Morris, I believe, again, people have connected the dots. I think you're correct. I think that the Cardinals would prefer to have him come on as assistant head coach, hopefully pay him a good salary, and be their defensive coordinator. That would be an absolute home run for this franchise. You would take two high capable assistant coaches, one of which who's been a head coach, both of which have ties to Sean McVay. LaFleur's ties go deeper than that. He's been all over this league. I think that that's about as good as you can imagine for the Cardinals at this point in the coaching search. Now, I'm going to talk about Clint Kubiak and what I've heard with the team. We're going to talk about Chris Shula, who suddenly doesn't have a job, which is flipping nuts. But then I want to first get to, of course, the Diana Rossini tweet. Rossini has been uncharacteristically quiet as it relates to the Cardinals opening. She hasn't reported anything about it. And, whether this is bad optics or not, all the other jobs are getting filled. And then there's 4 jobs remaining. So she's locking in on Arizona. And so suddenly at 2:20, about an hour ago, we have an update. Rossini's tweet reads as follows, that right now the Arizona Cardinals consider Raheem Morris, Anthony Campanile, and Mike LaFleur their lead candidates. So again, it's what we had heard. It's what we had talked about. There were still some people that were tying this opening to Vance Joseph. As Bob said it, I think the Vance Joseph rumor was on life support yesterday. I think it's done now. Could they still bring him in this week to do an interview? I guess. I mean, the optics of it would be tough, but you don't go through this entire process and hire Vance Joseph after this has happened. It's going to be one of these 3 guys. I really do think it's going to be between LaFleur and Campanile. I think LaFleur has every opportunity to secure this job as early as Monday, Tuesday. Now, whether or not they have to wait 2 weeks to, seal the deal, it remains to be seen. But I think Campanile's got a shot if Mike LaFleur is not impressive with Michael Bidwill and company in person. I think they like the makeup of Mike LaFleur. They like what he brings to the table from an offensive standpoint, from a quarterback standpoint. He's been hand in hand with Sean McVay. He dropped 45 points on them earlier this season at State Farm Stadium. There's a lot to like. So my guess is if he nails the interview, which I expect him to do, that's going to be the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And then it's just a waiting game. Do you have Nick Rallis in your back pocket to pair with him? I know a lot of people don't prefer that, but it's an option. It's not a great option. It's an option. I don't love those 2 guys being under 40 with minimal experience, but how realistic is it if the Cardinals can't hire Mike LaFleur this week that Raheem Morris is going to wait for them to be done? Now, deals are done under the table all the time in the NFL. Raheem Morris, this is his last opportunity, I think, to get a head job would be with the Cardinals, as we've outlined. But I feel like right now, the preferred option is to bring those 2 guys here. And that is a formidable duo. I mean, anybody throwing water on that, I mean, those are 2 guys that immediately give you viability. Raheem Morris, his defense was outstanding at the end of the year with Atlanta. I mean, they shut down Matthew Stafford and company for 3 quarters that game with a team that, was Kirk Cousins and a bunch of kids on defense. A really impressive outing late in the season. And then you get LaFleur, who hopefully was going to help you find your next franchise quarterback. Hopefully he's going to bring your offense up to the 21st century with Mike Marv and Trey McBride. That's the dream combo. And I'm going to sit here and tell you right now, it's realistic. It's very realistic because of the fact that Chris Shula, who I know people like for the Cardinal job, it doesn't look like he's in the mix to get a second interview. The shocker heard around the NFL landscape today, Mike McCarthy, I'll take the L on this, is the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, what a horror show for their franchise. Looking under those Twitter comments, Mike McCarthy is just, I think, a worse version of Mike Tomlin, frankly, in his 60s with no quarterback. But that's a conversation for a different day. Now you've got Chris Shula, who likely will remain on the Rams staff. Why is that key? Because you would assume that Raheem Morris would have been a prime candidate to replace Chris Shula in LA with Sean McVay, had they lost Chris Shula. And so this, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I believe Mike LaFleur is the favorite, but I don't know if I can sit here and say, like, oh, Raheem Morris is the favorite to get the DC job. I do feel like the Arizona Cardinals right now, it's in their best position to lock down their head coach and then do their best with their staff. But you can't be worried about, like, I see this line on Twitter. I like Campanile a lot. If they ended up going with Campanile, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But I just think his inexperience as a one-year coordinator and his inexperience in the division is a little bit of a red flag. He's a great candidate if you can't get LaFleur. If LaFleur flames out in the interview, right? Like that's their fallback. I got a text message before the show. LaFleur, the front runner, fallback is Campanile. And like, if you're Anthony Campanile, you're not taking any grief with that. You're a one-year coordinator. You've moved up the ranks. You're going to be a hot commodity every year if you continue to do what you're doing in Jacksonville. Whereas I think Mike LaFleur paid his dues. There's a track record with Liam Cohen and Kevin O'Connell, these guys that didn't call play. I mean, Kevin O'Connell didn't call plays with McVay. I know Liam Cohen went to Tampa Bay, but these former McVay prodigy OCs, I mean, their hit rate's pretty flipping high. I mean, it's really high. And I'm sure that Michael Bidwill and Monti Ossenfort see that. What McVay has been able to do in such a short time, you want a piece of that if you're the Cardinals. You want to try to emulate that. And why I think Campanile would be a good hire in his own right, like you could also say, like, is this not sustainable from a head coaching standpoint with his inexperience? I think that remains to be seen. So, I mean, that's where things stand with this job right now. If I'm an Arizona Cardinal fan, I'm elated. This is about as good as it can get outside of a McDermott taking this job. And by all accounts, he's going to sit out and not coach in 2026. I don't know if the Cardinals reached out. I haven't confirmed that or not, but I can tell you the Arizona Cardinals, if they can land this plane, they've played this pretty well, because these last couple hires, while I like Jesse Minter, you didn't think he was the top candidate they were pursuing. Mike McCarthy certainly wasn't on their radar, right? It looks like the Browns are going to go with Shieldhouse or Odinsky, but Shieldhouse is making a push, and then you're going to have Jim Schwartz back as their DC, like Cardinals aren't in on those guys, and then I don't know what the hell Buffalo's doing. Buffalo and the Raiders could be in a position where maybe they sniff around the floor early next week and push the Cardinals. I still think Clint Kubiak is destined for Las Vegas. But then you've got people, let's talk about it, that are pushing Vance Joseph for that job. So let's talk a little Vance Joseph. Again, I'm not coming up here. I don't want to do a victory lap. I don't want to, diminish what the guy's done as a DC. I hope he has a good performance tomorrow. This was obvious from those of us who are covering this team on a daily basis. And you can tell, and I'm not trying to throw shade at any particular person in this market, but Bo and I do this every day. We're on the phone and we do this every day. And then there are people who, tap in when it's convenient for them and throw out a take and tap out and piggyback on the national consensus. And it's just like, there was no way that the Cardinals were going to go into this hiring cycle, the fan base in a tizzy, pissed off with the season they just had. They got Jonathan Gannon out in the form of season ticket cancellations. And there was no way the franchise was going to spit in their face and say, we're hiring Vance Joseph. No, like they weren't doing that. There were three reasons for that. Number one, the optics of it were terrible. Number two, Monti Ossenfort doesn't have one lick of a connection with Vance Joseph. And this is a general manager league. Michael Bidwill, for all his faults, has never picked a head coach. It's been his GM, Keim, Rod Graves, and now Monti Ossenfort. Monti Ossenfort is making this hire, right? And then number three is Vance Joseph, to me, like, who is he bringing on his staff? Like, Davis Webb's getting head interview jobs. I don't think Davis Webb would be a lock to come with wherever Vance would go. I just think there was a respectable, calculated effort by Vance's people to keep his name in the cycle, and that's what good PR teams do. It's what good agents do. And there was an article that I read before I jumped on air, and it 100% is true. There are not enough black or minority candidates being considered, and I agree with that. And I would prefer, listen, like Vance Joseph, I wish it was any other circumstance I could embrace him, but his time here didn't end well. It wasn't a great experience, right? Cardinals need more than that. If Vance Joseph was in, Jesse Minter's spot, he would have been hired already. Nate Shieldhouse, up-and-coming guy, is going to probably be a head coach here soon if he's not this cycle. Robert Saleh, minority candidate, Cardinal fans were begging for. So the optics of it don't look great. I get that. And so wish Vance the best. But again, look at their fans. I was going to retweet some stuff earlier, and then I thought it was in bad taste, but all of them are just disappointed they don't get the comp picks now. And it's like that. If you're a true Vance Joseph guy or a Denver Bronco fan, I get you want your 2 third-round comp picks. But if you're going to back them, be legitimate. I mean, look at Denver fans with Vance in comparison to, I don't know, Jag fans with Campanile. It's night and day. I mean, I can't tell you when I dropped that news about LaFleur being the front runner, how many Jag fans were celebrating. That's the reaction that an authentic fan base has when they do not want to lose a coach, right? So best of luck to Vance. We'll see if anybody, Cardinals or otherwise, give him an interview this week. But I mean, right now, how do I expect the next 2 days to go? I expect the Cardinals to get an interview with Mike LaFleur Monday or Tuesday. Raheem Morris has already had an interview. Anthony Weaver's coming Sunday. I feel like that complies with the Rooney Rule until we hear otherwise. And then Campanelli's had 2 interviews, and they're going to wait and see. So, I mean, what else? This is why it's, for those of us, half of the time, this is just paying attention. This isn't sources. This isn't, and sometimes it is. Sometimes you pick up the phone, you text people. Most of the time, this is just this is just common sense, guys. Here, let's talk a little Clint Kubiak for a second, because I know there's a lot of people. I'm going to take a drink of water. I know there's a lot of people that are like, why aren't the Cardinals going after Clint Kubiak? I'll tell you where they stand. They like Clint Kubiak a lot. They would love to interview him. I got a text message before the show saying that they view that, though, as a pipe dream, a little bit of a prayer. So, if they get an interview with him, I think that would be great. I think they'd love that. But I think that they believe that he's destined for Vegas or potentially now Buffalo. And I don't know if Buffalo's put in a formal request. They're kind of doing their own thing, taking their time. But I know people on Twitter were disappointed that they didn't try with Kubiak. I think they just feel like Kubiak is not interested given the quarterback situation. And that's fine. Like we talked about late last week, I want people who want this job because it's a challenging job, because they feel like they can turn it around. I mean, people are going to, throw shit at me and shade, but I think LaFleur, if you can get Raheem Morris, is maybe more enticing than Kubiak with Nick Rallis. I mean, Raheem Morris as a defensive coordinator would be unbelievable with Mike LaFleur. I mean, one of the biggest knocks on Gannon, maybe the biggest, is the inexperience on his staff. And it's Raheem Morris, been head coach twice. He won 10 games in Tampa. He helped put out fires at the end of his tenure in Atlanta, and they won 4 straight games. So for me, I like that hire a lot. That to me, if I'm a Cardinal fan, they somehow find a way to pull that off. The Rams lose tomorrow. They get LaFleur done Monday, and they're Raheem Morris is en route later that week. I mean, the Cardinals keeping Raheem in the mix here is part of that for optics for him, to do him a favor and then to turn around and hire him. I also think these guys talk. You don't think, LaFleur is talking to Raheem saying, you want to work together again? You want to come to Arizona? I'm going to make you assistant head coach. We're going to pay you good money, make you one of the highest paid defensive coordinators. I think there's a possibility that happens. Again, the wrench in that is if the Rams win and we have to sit around and wait. But you can't be worried about if LaFleur and company win with McVay and Shula and the guys. oh, we're not going to get a great DC this year. Let's just go and pivot to Anthony Campanile. If you believe Mike LaFleur is the guy, I mean, like, look at Liam Cohen. He got hired last year, right? And he went out and found Campanile, and he was an unknown. So, like, trust that Mike LaFleur could get somebody to come in here and do a hell of a job for him. Bees, I'm going to get to your super chats here in just a couple minutes. Let's, last thing we need is a coach that's just chasing a check. Absolutely. I think this, Mike LaFleur, if he wants the job, if he's ready for the challenge, does his job in the interview, I think it's his job. Let's take a look at the coaching tracker update. And 4 jobs remain. Thank you, Noah. Again, the shocker around the NFL is Mike McCarthy is the new head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. For their fan base, it's just the status quo. It's like we're good winning 10 games. And listen, like, I love McCarthy for this job because I know the floor. The floor here is 3 wins. The floor with Pittsburgh is like 9, 10 wins every year. But that also happens to be the ceiling. So no quarterback. It's just bizarre. But again, it's good for Cardinal fans. Like, you look at this, there have really only been one hire that spurned the Cardinals and what they wanted to do. We all know what that was. Saleh going to Tennessee. Cardinals weren't in on Harbaugh by all accounts. Minter with Baltimore didn't feel like they were going to go that direction. Probably just didn't want to set themselves up for disappointment. Stefanski, his relationship with Gannon, not in on it with Atlanta. Hafley, no thank you. I just, fan base wouldn't have preferred that. And then, of course, now Mike McCarthy. So again, it's like, all right, Cardinals, you're sitting here, and I would say you're sitting pretty. I mean, if you would have told me 3.5 weeks ago when this started, would you take this? 100% I would. Shula, LaFleur, Kubiak still on the board. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, that's 3 of the top, 5, 7 candidates here. Here's the interview tracker. And again, like, how many of these guys are OC options, right? Like, is Joe Brady an OC option with Campanile? Is Thomas Brown an OC option with Campanile? And then on the flip side, LaFleur and Morris, we've talked about ad nauseum here. Anthony Weaver. Like, is Anthony Weaver an option as defensive coordinator? I mean, like, should we consider that, right? Like, Anthony Weaver is getting a lot of press over the last couple of days. People said he was a legitimate contender for the Steeler job and didn't get it. But here's a guy who's, all right, let's take a look at his background here. With the Dolphins as their DC the last 2 years, was the Ravens before that, Houston, and then with the Browns and the Buffalo Bills. So, like, I don't know if he's crossed paths with anybody within McVay's coaching tree. But again, like, if you told me, okay, you can't get Raheem Morris, but Anthony Weaver's going to come here and run your defense, I think people would like that. Armageddon Village saying Thomas Brown OC with LaFleur. I mean, maybe. I don't know if LaFleur is going to call his own plays or not. But yeah, like, is Thomas Brown somebody you look at and you're like, hey, you come run this offense with Mike LaFleur. He's just the passing game coordinator. He doesn't run the offense. Josh McDaniels does with the Patriots. I mean, Monti Ossenfort took a lot of slack and a lot of heat, rightfully so. Like, I had no issue if they wanted to pivot off of him after firing Jonathan Gannon. But, I mean, we're about 3 to 5 days away from this could be looking pretty good for Monti Ossenfort. And guess what? That's the effing point. The point is to come in here and crush it. You had your first hire, a guy that you loved, and Jonathan Gannon, a guy that you were fond of, and you brought him in here, and he did his thing, and it failed. And now your GM, status is on life support. It's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to succumb to the pressure and go down for the 10 count? Or are you going to come out swinging here and say, I'm not getting fired. We're turning this around. I'm taking my 28 draft picks, and I'm taking Ruben Bain 3rd overall, and we're going to come out and try to win games next year. I think, to me, it's like Monti Ossenfort really has an opportunity to reshape his image here locally, especially if, the money's right. If you're Michael Bidwill, I still think, Jonathan Gannon, whether he gets the Packer job, I know he's in the mix for a couple other jobs. I feel like like that money is going to be off the books. So, I mean, the Cardinals are paying JG about $6 million. There are DCs who make more than that. And I think Gannon's going to at least match that at his next stop. So it's like there's going to be money to be spent. I just, to me, it's like LaFleur is the favorite. What happens with Rallis? What happens with Raheem Morris? But again, it's not over till it's over. You know, I know people online are supportive of Anthony Campanile, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's your prerogative, that's your pick. You know, no harm, no foul. And they could always pivot back to him. But the Raheem Morris thing is, you know, to me, like the outlier of the group. He just feels like the outlier. You just fired. I don't know from an optics standpoint if you can fire a coach, have a coach that was just fired, and then you pick him up as your head coach, like one of the last hires of the hiring cycle. I just don't think that's something you can sell to fans. I'm not saying he would do a bad job. And he's the only one who's put together a full staff, and he's got the experience. I mean, look at all these jobs that are getting filled outside of Jesse Minter. All these guys have been head coaches before. Obviously, Halfley at the college level, but I just nobody else is hiring Raheem Morris for a head job. I do think Campanile and LaFleur are probably future head coaches in this league. Let's take a look at the juice meter. Got an updated juice meter here. Pour one out for our guy Tupac. And then, like we talked about it, there's Mike LaFleur, 3 juices on the juice meter, alongside Clint Kubiak, Harbaugh, McDaniel, and Saleh gone. So based on the juice meter alone, Kubiak and LaFleur still remaining are the 2 highest. So think of it like the draft best available, Mike LaFleur. And then, of course, negative juice all the way down there with Vance Joseph and Matt Nagy, et cetera. Matt Nagy trying to find a job now after being shut out in Tennessee. So, I mean, like, no disrespect to Raheem, Thomas Brand, or Anthony Weaver. I'd love those guys as coordinators, 100%. And make no mistake, like Mike LaFleur, like Gannon, is going to live or die by his staff. Like Jonathan Gannon, I think, like, knows how to coach, isn't a bad coach. His staff wasn't good enough. And then he was too slow to pivot off guys who weren't good enough. If I'm Mike LaFleur, I'm looking around at how cutthroat it is. And that's why it's so imperative, guys, that they get somebody from this division. Because, I mean, you look at Kyle Shanahan desperately pleading for Robert Saleh to come back because he knows, like, I need you to be able to allow us to compete again. And they did. And now he lost him. And now they're scrambling to find somebody comparable. Jonathan Gannon, with an underperforming offense at the end of 2024, did not fire his offensive coordinator. Mistake. Big mistake. I would argue it's the reason he got fired. Because then you turn around and Drew's still in your building, and then there's Clayton Adams, and Clayton's like, Coach, I got an interview for the Dallas OC job. I'm not calling plays, but it's a pay raise. At that very moment, I would have said, okay, Clayton, you're our new OC. Drew, you've been fired. I mean, if we're just keeping it 100, does it save his job? I think so. They're not losing the Titans. They're probably not losing the 49ers. Their season's dramatically different. He's still here. One move that he could have done with his staff, and I think he would have been fine. Even with the injuries, I think they would have won 7 or 8 games, and he'd still be here. But he made a mistake, and he didn't get help for Nick Rallis, and there's no Mike Zimmer on the staff. I mean, like, if I'm Mike LaFleur, like if I'm Monti Ossenfort sitting in these interviews, and it's just like, it's okay to make mistakes with your staff. Just don't double down on your mistakes. Like Monti Ossenfort, give him credit, didn't pull Steve Keim, whiffed on the 2024 free agent class, brought in 2 defensive tackles, mega busts. We know who they are. Justin Jones, Bilal Nichols. Said, I'm going to just keep adding D tackles. This past offseason brought in Calais, Dalvin Tomlinson, Walter Nolan. Just like, if you make a mistake, it's okay. Just be quick to correct it. Kyle Shanahan fires coaches every year. I mean, Sean McVay doesn't because he never flipping makes a mistake. But Shane Waldron with the Seahawks, what happened to him? I mean, like, they pivot off guys. I mean, Mike McDonald fired his OC, shipped out his quarterback, and he's a win away from the Super Bowl. That's what wins. I can appreciate loyalty and continuity, but if I'm Mike LaFleur and you're sitting there and you're like, I don't have any other options, I'm going to go with Nick Rallis. Okay, go with Nick Rallis for a year. And if it doesn't work, then you need to move on. Nobody will fault you for that. If they have to wait for 2 weeks for Mike LaFleur and he can't get a competent DC with experience, I mean, Nick Rallis has at least called plays in the NFL, had the defense performing well 2 years ago. I would go to Nick, and if you vibe with Nick and say, hey, Nick, this is our one shot to do this, you and I. And then I'd probably make him hire a senior DC, assistant coach. But it's obvious what they're trying to do. We got super chats coming up. Hit that like button. Appreciate everybody tapped in. We did have to take an L on our coaching predictions. Let's see it, Noah. I don't feel great. We're hitting a cold streak here. McCarthy, not Shula. That's like the biggest shock of the day. And now it's like Cardinals were sitting pretty, but Mike McCarthy somehow gets a job. I thought he would be out of the NFL. I think the Steelers remind me a lot of the St. Louis baseball Cardinals, where they've been good for forever, and then they just can't keep up with the sport. And now I could see McCarthy having a lot of issues there. I don't love their skilled players. I don't love their offensive line, and they don't have a quarterback. I think we're going to take an L on the Browns as well. I think they know that Jim Schwartz is there regardless of what they do. And I think it flip a coin between Udinski and Shieldhouse. But it does feel like, and Rap Sheet said this morning, it feels like Shieldhouse can get that job. I mean, he's like a wonderkin. He looks legitimately like 25 years old. I know he's over 30, or he might just be at 30. But, I mean, like, if you're Mike LaFleur, just contextualize this for the people who are like, Mike LaFleur is going to take this job. You're telling me Mike LaFleur is not going to get the Cardinal job, but his subordinate, Shieldhouse, is going to get the Browns job? I make that make sense. It means they're both gone, more than likely. And then, of course, we had Kubiak going to the Vegas Raiders. And Noah, put that up, would you, one more time? Who do we have the Buffalo Bills going with? I mean, Davis Webb, Joe Brady, Brian Dable. Just get them all on staff together and figure it out. Just make Josh Allen the head coach. That'd be fine. But Kubiak to the Raiders, I still think has legitimacy to it. But we're going to take an L on the Browns. I can already tell you. We're going to be looking at potentially 500 or below 500 on here. But again, if Cardinals get the right coach, it doesn't matter. So interesting dynamic. But I'll tell you, I love Shula being around. If you get Raheem Morris, I'm disappointed though, because I wanted Sean McVay's staff defensively to get kind of plucked and taken over. But I mean, who's to say if you can't get Raheem Morris, LaFleur is not talking to some people on Shula's staff and saying, hey, Joe Bull linebacker coach, hey, DB coach, hey, defensive line coach, come here and be my DC, right? I mean, obviously you'd rather have Raheem, who's got legitimate coordinating experience and head coaching experience, but start plucking that staff and start looking for guys. I mean, I would imagine Raheem Morris is familiar with the majority of McVay's defensive staff. So I typically don't root for Seattle ever, but we are all big Sam Darnold fans tomorrow. I mean, can Sam Darnold do it one more time? Kenneth Walker, that defense, like, can they hold Stafford and company below 24 points? I think if they do, they probably win. That would be ideal. Charbonnet being out, especially as a pass protector, that hurts. I went to State Farm Stadium last year and watched the Rams destroy Darnold as a member of the Vikings. It was really bad. But Kevin O'Connell, while Flores is good, I mean, Mike McDonald's on a different level. We need good Sam Darnold tomorrow, which probably means that we will get a trash version of Sam Darnold. Andrew asking, Johnny, you think Rollins gets the job if he leaves AZ, maybe wherever JG goes? That's, logical. Or he could join Fangio's staff in Philadelphia, but yeah, probably. I heard an interesting spot for JG. Not in the NFC, but out west, that I think could come to fruition. Red Feather Workshop Dana saying JV has no hope for Kubiak. Let me read you my text message. I'm not going to tell you who sent it to me. Saying this. Yeah, I think they want to think they have a chance with Kubiak. And I think the Jags guy is their fallback. And I know for a fact they love LaFleur, but they think it's a prayer for Kubiak. So that's fine. I mean, look, Kubiak probably takes the job if he doesn't get the Raiders job, right? But I mean, you could try to go full court press on Kubiak this week. But I mean, like Jesse Minter toward the end, doesn't the team knows when they've got a shot at a guy or they don't, right? Like Hafley, that was kind of out of nowhere with Miami, and he had a tie to the GM. But I mean, like, if you were the Cardinals and you thought you could legitimately get Kubiak, like, wouldn't you, like, in Rossini's report or Rapsheet's report, wouldn't he be listed? I just don't. I don't think it's realistic. And frankly, like, I mean, I like McVay's staff more than I like Seattle staff. So if you have a chance to purge some of those guys, friendly neighborhood asking who is the lead on Kubiak. It's been the Raiders for a while. Him having a chance to go work with Mendoza. They want to go young offensive guy after being spurned by Pete Carroll. People are trying to connect Vance Joseph to that job now. I don't see that either. I mean, I think Jim Leonard is going to get a DC job, and I think Vance will be back in Denver. I think Vance is going to be in Denver for a good long while. Bills are a threat because, I mean, seamlessly, if they hit it off with anybody like that, they're going to get the kind of their pick of the litter here. And that's why if you're the Cardinals, it would just behoove you to just get something done with LaFleur. And just like Jonathan Gannon, parameters in place, and then you just kind of go dark for about 10 days. It would suck. I wouldn't love that, but it is what it is. I mean, like, the track record with McVay OCs is elite. He's in the division. I mean, think about all the boxes LaFleur checks. I know he hasn't been a head coach before. Okay, he's called plays in the NFL, albeit with the Jets. He's worked for multiple NFL franchises, Browns, Falcons, Jets, Rams. He's worked with Shanahan and McVay. His brother's a very successful head coach. He can build a staff. He did call plays and dropped 45 on the Cardinals earlier this year when McVay was out. I mean, that was LaFleur's game plan. And he's got relationships. He could get you maybe a Raheem Morris defensively, and he's from the NFC West. I wish there was a head coach with experience that wanted this job. I wish McDermott wanted this job. Saleh, Harbaugh, one of those guys, maybe McCarthy even. The experienced guys didn't want to take this on. And that's fine. You can't make somebody take the job. But this is where I'm going back on what was said early in the process, and that was, well, guys are going to be turning down the Cardinal job to go back as coordinators, which was insane. I mean, that was just nuts, right? Because now, look, if you're Chris Shula, you got a flipping hot defense. You're going to kick ass tomorrow against Sam Darnold, you think, and you thought you were going to get the Steeler job, and you wake up this morning, it's Mike McCarthy. And it's like, well, suddenly maybe you're not as hot as you thought you were. Are guys really turning down jobs? Here's who's turning down jobs. Jesse Minter, when he has another job offer in the Baltimore Ravens. He's saying, no thanks, Browns. Like, this is 1 of 32. This is the highest level competition in pro football across the continental United States or otherwise. Like, this is where the big dogs play. They're not turning down jobs to stay as coordinators, right? We've talked about it on our show ad nauseum. Byron Leftwich thought he was a future head coach. Where's he at now? Colorado State or whatever? I think Colorado. He was supposed to be the next head coach in Jacksonville. They offered him, but he's like, I don't want to work with the GM. Okay, now he's out of the league. Like, as long as they've got McVay to leech off in LA, like, Shula will be fine. But here's what I will say for Shula, and I'm sure this played a factor, and it's something we've talked about. I mean, he's no experience outside of working with McVay and the Rams. And he's a prodigy. He's got, blue blood heritage. His grandfather's a flipping legend, right? Multiple Super Bowl champ. He's got peers and aunts, uncles, worked in the league, coached in the league. Like, what has he really been through, right? He's been with McVay and been coddled with McVay. He's a great DC, but it's like, what's the pipeline? Where did he have to overcome adversity? Like, Campanile has seen some things. And then he went to Jacksonville, where they've never had a good defense in the last 10, 15 years. And he had the number one run defense and a top 5 defense. Okay, I'm impressed by that. LaFleur has been with multiple franchises, including the Jets, where he had a ton of adversity. He's been fired. And then has gone to McVay, and he's remade his career. He was in Atlanta. He was in Cleveland. He's seen how dysfunctional franchises operate. I want that for my head coach. I want somebody to know what they're getting into. I mean, that's why people texted me early in the process, like, just give it to Vance because he knows what he's getting into. It's like, yeah, but they can do better than that. And clearly they're showing you that with their finalists here. Hit that like button. We've got 500 people watching live on a Saturday, giving up your time today. Appreciate everybody here. Again, if you're just joining us, the finalists revealed: Arizona Cardinals frontrunner likely going to be Mike LaFleur, with Anthony Campanile and then Raheem Morris. I'm going to take a quick drink here. Let's take one more look at the coaching vacancies here in the NFL, Noah. I mean, it really does feel like these are going to get filled depending on who wins or loses tomorrow. I mean, Kubiak loses. Is he a Raider next week? Rams lose. Shieldhouse and LaFleur, you would assume, are taken care of. And then who the hell knows what the Bills are doing? DJ Boogie saying, I agree. If the Rams win, I think we should just hire Camp. And I get it. You've got PTSD from when they hired Gannon, and we had to wait, and he couldn't get a jump on his staff. But like, I honestly think he was just going to hire Drew anyway. And Nick was coveted at the time. But I mean, Gannon showed you, like, once he hired people, he didn't pivot off of them. So let's see here. Let's jump into your super chats. We got a couple new members here. I'm going to start with Braindead Steel. Thank you so much. Becoming a member. We got 500 watching live. Consider liking this. Slam that like. And then consider becoming a member. It's just $5 for the month. And, of course, we're going to the Super Bowl here a week from Monday. We're going to have a bunch of member-only content. You should see the guest list we've got. And hopefully we can talk to some of the hottest names in the NFL media circle about the Cardinals' next head coach. 3DMK, new member. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Everybody here, hit that like for our two newest members. All right, Jack kicking us off, $1.99. We getting a new head coach in the next few days, boys. It certainly looks that way. Excuse me. I mean, doesn't it feel pretty obvious that, like, LaFleur is either going to be hired or LaFleur is going to interview, and then they're just going to say, we're going dark? Like, I'd have to go back, and Jack, and look at the timeline when Gannon came in, because I think it was like Anarumo. I mean, look, and I'm no disrespect, are Raheem Morris and Anthony Campanile this cycle's for the Cardinals version of Lou Anarumo and Mike Kafka? Maybe. Guys that they like, they would like on staff, but not serious contenders for the job. I think Campanile, though, is a serious contender for the job. I do. Because Gannon, you knew you were getting. They still got to meet with LaFleur. They still got to touch base with him and his reps. But yes, it does feel like we're reaching the end of this. Aaron, $10. Thank you so much. There's a lot of info needed. I hope we get Mike as our head coach and somehow get Camp on our team. No, that'd be nuts. It's UFC Fight Night, Johnny. You're going to be watching. I mean, I'll probably have it on in the background. We're fired up for the games tomorrow. I was at flag football all morning with my son, and it started at 8 and didn't get done till like 1 o'clock. So we're pretty wiped out. But I mean, Campanile, it's tough because you fell in love with him this week, and then it's just like I would really want him on the staff, but you just got to remember, like, the goal of this search. I mean, it's not like other searches. It's the Cardinals. We know how this franchise operates. They need a special individual, and I just need, like, it's a twofold. It's a double whammy. Like, the Browns and the Jets can be dysfunctional, but their divisions at least go through ebbs and flows. Like, the Dolphins aren't great, and the Steelers kind of go through a middling phase, and the Ravens kind of lost a bunch of games this year, and the Bengals were bad. It's like the Cardinals are dysfunctional, and the entire division reps like 3 of the best coaches in the NFL, like 3 of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. I mean, you're going up against just complete heavyweights, and that's tough. Can Campanile get them over that? I mean, we're going to find out. Joel, $4.99. I've seen some posts on Instagram talking about the Cardinals saying Carson Beck at pick 3. Is that just social media BS? Yes, 100%. Carson Beck is not a top 50 quarterback. I guess he could get overdrafted. Ty Simpson's probably going to be the number 2 quarterback in this class, and I think he's going in the first round, but probably like maybe where Kenny Pickett went. Cardinals are going to take best line of scrimmage player. You can, like, we'll do draft season. We'll do mocks out the rear end here pretty soon, but it's either going to be a tackle or a defensive lineman. I think it'll probably be a defensive lineman. Reuben Bain opposite Josh Sweat, that'd be pretty good. And then a couple right tackles, the kid from Miami, the kid from Utah. Let's see how they perform. I think Bain pulled out of the Senior Bowl, but the right tackle for Miami is going to participate. We'll have people at the Senior Bowl. Simon, $4.99. So many positives to LaFleur. Could bring in Morris as DC, can choose and mold our next quarterback. Better to have an offensive head coach that knows the division. 100%. Like they're just checks too many boxes for them. And you need to check a lot of boxes with this hire. Jonathan Gannon, we loved him in the room, but he had never been a head coach before. And in today's NFL, he's on the wrong side of the football, and he couldn't get the offensive side right. And he had Kyler Murray at least. You at least had Kyler Murray coming back. It's going to be really hard to hire a defensive coach and then be like, it's Jacoby right now. So, and I put this on Twitter, and people were blowing me shit because I was a Saleh guy, and I still think Saleh would be a great fit for this team. But I put it out there because I think it's just too obvious to ignore. The last three coaches that have gotten this team to the playoffs, some of them multiple times, have been offensive coaches. Wisenhunt went to the Super Bowl and, of course, the playoffs the next year. Then it was Bruce Arians right after him, 2 playoff appearances in the NFC Championship game. And then it was Cliff in 2021, making the wild card and winning 11 games. The other guys, fair or not, have not had a winning season. Steve Wilkes fired, Jonathan Gannon fired. I mean, the offensive guys, it's just safer in this league now to go with an offensive guy. I mean, like look at the 3 coaches that turned around their program this year. Ben Johnson, offense. Vrabel, for the most part, is an offensive guy. I know he played linebacker in the NFL, but more or less an offensive guy. And he'd been a head coach before. And then Liam Cohen, offensive guy. Josh Espato, $1.99. Just want to remind Noah his Lions hired Drew Petzing. That's rough. Noah deserves a good head coach here in Arizona. Noah has seen some good football in the Lions. Unfortunately, we believe that time is coming to an end. And then here in Arizona, we'll pick up that baton from Detroit. Patrick, QB1, $1.99. Any chance Raiders or Bills steal LaFleur? There's always a chance. I saw something from Josina Anderson last week that said that the Raiders had an affinity for LaFleur. I don't know. We're getting down to the end game here. I mean, you got Kubiak and LaFleur, and then, I mean, the worst of all scenarios would be like Raiders getting LaFleur, Kubiak, and then the Bills getting the other coach. But I have not heard about the Bills being in on Mike LaFleur. I don't know if they've put in a request or not. Raiders have talked to Davis Webb and Clint Kubiak. I still think it will be Clint Kubiak with the Raiders, the Bills, Dable or Davis Webb or Joe Brady, some kind of kooky combination there, and then LaFleur in Arizona. But I mean, that's why if you're the Cardinals, it's in your best interest to move quickly. And like we've heard from how many people now that they're in on LaFleur. Ari, who's been on our show, and initially it was Albert Breer said they were infatuated with the coordinators from the Rams. Now we know it's the offensive coordinator. That was forever ago. Rapsheet, Schefter, and Rossini. So there's 5 people on the national scene that have tied them to LaFleur. I mean, like, I think we know where this is going. And not one person saying that Vance Joseph's in the running here. So Red Feather Workshop, not interviewing Phillip Rivers is a good start. Yeah, they could also do that. Yeah, the Bills are a wild card. That's for sure. But it does feel like they're, for them, it probably want to go with an offensive guy. I would think you fired a defensive head coach, but I don't know. That's the one that you just have to watch and hope you don't see LaFleur's name kind of creep up. B's $2 here. Why hire LaFleur if he doesn't call plays for us? It's a great question. I think because he's an offensive coach with experience under McVay. I mean, like that, as crazy as that sounds, it's like all the Belichick guys failed that worked under him. Most of the offensive guys under McVay succeed. His brother's a head coach in the NFL. He succeeds. I mean, like, I think it's not a lock that he's going to have success here. You're just trying with this head coach. You're just kind of trying to hedge your bet. trying to just figure out, okay, where is he going to help us the most? The offensive side, finding the next quarterback, giving us an identity offensively. And like he also and this matters, he's watched the routine of Sean McVay for how long now? And it's like, well, let's just emulate that. Let's do our best to emulate that. But I mean, you're bringing up a legitimate point. It's like, would he come here and call plays or not? I mean, could you trust somebody that's not under the McVay tree like a Thomas Brown to come here and call plays? That's going to be the biggest question mark, because I think you just get a plug and play DC like a Rollis or Raheem Morris and you're fine. G. Wilker saying I'd be very surprised if LaFleur doesn't call plays. I told Bo that. But Bo's not thrilled with the idea of LaFleur calling plays. Josh Espada 199. Geeth will KO Patty tonight. Bet the house. Patty's pretty good. Did he cut his hair? Does he still have that bob haircut? No, I'm not up on my UFC vernacular. There's a lot of pro wrestling that happens in this house with my 10-year-old son. So we lean on the fictional over the nonfiction. Larry Mance, $5. Why aren't we in on Shula? He's got nowhere to turn. Sure, I'd rather have an OC. We never call plays over Shula. I get that. Maybe they'll talk to him now. Maybe this was something that they were kind of waiting on as it relates to the Steelers, and now maybe they can go and talk to him. Listen, if they called Shula this week and wanted to meet with him, like, I wouldn't be opposed to that. It just goes back, Larry, to what we talked about. You just got to really hope that he can succeed in a dysfunctional franchise. And that's what the Cardinals are until further notice. They're a dysfunctional franchise. He's been with an elite franchise with a Hall of Fame head coach, and his family is NFL royalty. I mean, it's just Bruce Arians had been everywhere, had seen everything, had been fired, had been passed over, had been booed at Super Bowl parades, had been looked over, and he came here and he was hardened and he was ready to take the Cardinals to the next level. Shula, I mean, why didn't the Steelers hire Shula? I mean, it just felt blatantly obvious their fan base wanted him. That's the only question, Larry. But like if they were like, no, we're pivoting to Shula. I mean, he's been outstanding in the playoffs. He's been outstanding. I mean, that performance against the Bears was about as good as it gets. It took a couple special plays for Caleb Williams to even make that a game. Jack, 199. Who's your Royal Rumble winner this year, Johnny? That's a good question. I don't know who the current champions are. I mean, like Cody Rhodes has won it the last couple of years, so probably not him. I have to think about that. I mean, let's get somebody a new opportunity to win the Rumble. I'm a big AJ Styles fan. I would say let AJ Styles win the Rumble before his career is over. But great question. Hit that like button. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. A couple more super chats here coming up around the corner as we start. I pulled up some ads this morning, and the ads via a couple different spots suggest that Mike LaFleur is the favorite. Now, our friends at Bet365 have not updated their head coaching odds, so I can't reference that. But interesting to see, the national betting scene kind of catch up to where we're going. And as Bo mentions, it's typically very fan-driven also. But I don't know. For me, right now, if we just kind of bring this whole thing home, the Arizona Cardinals, as dim as this search looked a week ago, and it looked bad. When this team, if you remember on this podcast, they were interviewing Arthur Smith. I mean, how long ago was that, Noah? About 10 days ago? I mean, that was about as dim as you could imagine. And they've pivoted, and now they're in a really good spot to be able now to go into, the final week before the big game, before the Super Bowl, and come out on the other side. I mean, that with a LaFleur, Campanile be fine. I mean, Kubiak's a pipe dream, but sure. And then, Shula's not getting a job now. You're in a really good spot, I think, for Arizona Cardinal fans. I mean, let's look at that list one more time, Noah, of coaches they've spoken with. I mean, they're not very many on this list that Cardinal fans would love. Joseph, no. Weaver, no, not as the head coach. Brown, no. Nagy, no. Raheem Morris, the sense I get from Cardinal fans is that'd be a huge mistake. Arthur Smith, no. Matt Burke probably needs to do it another year. Joe Brady, flip a coin. And then Campanelli's become a fan favorite over the last couple of days. But, Chris Shula's not going to get a job. Campanelli's not going to get a job. LaFleur, we'll see. Clint Kubiak, we'll see. I'm like, you got pretty good odds now. I mean, we knew Jesse Minter and Saleh were getting head coaching jobs this cycle. Like we had felt like our locks to get jobs. I think we got to take Shula off of that, but we had Minter and we had Robert Saleh. So will be interesting to see. Hit that like button. No more super chats here. Big thanks to everybody watching, taking time out of your Saturday, spend some time with me. Bo will be back on Monday as we anxiously await the fallout from Championship Sunday and the potential for Michael LaFleur to become the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Or is it the dark horse, Anthony Campanile, who can make a push depending on both LaFleur's availability and how he would do in that one-on-one interview in Tempe? For Noah, I'm Johnny Venerable. Hit that like button. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. We appreciate everybody, and we'll see you on Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.